Before the legend, before the fury, and long before the silver screen immortalized his lightning-fast kicks, there was just a young boy named Li Junfan, born in San Francisco on November 27, 1940. His father, Li Huichen, a Cantonese opera star, happened to be touring the United States at the time. It was a twist of fate that Bruce Lee would be born on American soil, a detail that would later play a surprisingly pivotal role in his journey to Hollywood. After his birth, Bruce's family returned to Hong Kong when he was just a few months old. He was the fourth of 5 children, raised in a post-war city still recovering from the Japanese occupation. Life wasn't easy. The city was noisy, crowded, and volatile. But in the middle of this chaos, young Bruce was already developing a spark, one that set him apart from other kids his age. Bruce was a child actor before he could properly read a script. Thanks to his father's connections in the entertainment industry, he began appearing in Cantonese films as early as 6 years old. He didn't just act, he stole scenes. There was a natural charisma, a cheeky confidence that audiences couldn't ignore. Over time, he appeared in more than 20 films as a child actor in Hong Kong. But not everything in Bruce's early life was bright lights and camera flashes. As he grew older, he developed a reputation not just for his charm, but for his temper. He got into street fights, ran with gangs, and was often in trouble. His parents worried. They weren't raising a celebrity in the making. They were raising a ticking time bomb. Enter martial arts. Bruce's interest in martial arts was born not out of discipline, but survival. Hong Kong's streets were rough, and Bruce wasn't a big kid. After losing a few fights, he decided he'd had enough. At 13, he began studying Wing Chun under the legendary IP Man. The training was intense, but something about it clicked with Bruce. Wing Chun wasn't just about fighting, it was about flow, economy of motion, and precision. These ideas fascinated Bruce. Under IP Man's guidance, Bruce began to mature. He trained relentlessly, not just in class but in alleyways, rooftops, anywhere he could find space. He wasn't content with being good. He wanted to be better, faster, stronger, sharper. Martial arts began to shape his character, redirecting his raw energy into focus. But street fighting remained a part of his reality. His skills improved, but so did the trouble he found himself in. By the time Bruce was in his late teens, his mother feared for his future. He had become a well-known fighter on the streets, often clashing with other gangs. In one particular incident, he seriously injured a member of a notorious triad. Word got around. The threat of retaliation became very real. It was no longer safe for Bruce to stay in Hong Kong. So in 1959, with a mere $100 in his pocket, Bruce Lee boarded a steamship back to the country of his birth, the United States. He was 18 years old. When Bruce arrived in Seattle, he wasn't a martial arts master. He wasn't a film star. He was just another Asian kid with an accent, working as a dishwasher in a Chinese restaurant to pay his way through school. He enrolled at Edison Technical School, working hard to finish his high school diploma. Later, he would go on to attend the University of Washington, majoring in philosophy, something most people don't associate with the image of a kung fu icon. But for Bruce, philosophy and martial arts were deeply intertwined. He saw martial arts not just as a system of combat, but as a path to self-discovery. He devoured books on Taoism, Zen Buddhism, and Western philosophy. He read Nietzsche, Krishnamurti, and Lao Tzu. His thoughts were becoming more complex, his understanding of martial arts more personal. And it was during this time in Seattle that Bruce began teaching. At first, it was just a few students in a park, friends who wanted to learn how to punch and kick. But soon, his unique style and charisma drew more attention. He opened his first martial arts school, the Junfan Kung Fu Institute, named after himself. He taught anyone who was willing to learn, regardless of race or background. That alone made him controversial in the traditional Chinese martial arts world, where secrecy and exclusivity were the norm. Bruce believed martial arts should evolve. He found many classical techniques too rigid, too impractical. Why follow tradition blindly, he argued, if it doesn't work in real life? This rebellious approach to martial arts would eventually birth his own philosophy, Jeet Kune Do, but for now, it simply made him stand out. He caught the eye of many students, including those from outside the Asian community. One of them was a young woman named Linda Emery. Linda was fascinated by Bruce, not just his martial skills, but his mind. They fell in love and eventually married in 1964. Bruce, now a husband and soon-to-be father, found his life taking root in America. But Hollywood? That dream still felt like a distant galaxy. At the time, Asian actors were rarely seen on American screens. When they were usually caricatures, silent, submissive, or menacing villains with no depth. Bruce knew that to break into Hollywood, he would need more than skill, he'd need a revolution. And yet, the revolution had already quietly begun. In 1964, Bruce participated in the Long Beach International Karate Championships in California. It was here that he delivered a short, but unforgettable demonstration: lightning-fast punches, rapid-fire kicks, and a presence that electrified the crowd. Among those watching were celebrities, martial artists, and even a few television producers. One of them was Jay Sebring, a hairstylist for the stars, who was so impressed that he introduced Bruce to a producer named William Dozier. Dozier was casting for a new television series called The Green Hornet. The show needed someone to play the sidekick, Kato, an Asian martial artist with flair. Bruce auditioned, and his performance stunned everyone. Not only was he perfect for the role, he was something American television had never seen before. This was Bruce Lee's foot in the door. His first taste of Hollywood. And while the role of Kato was a sidekick, Bruce made it unforgettable. He was fast, so fast that the cameras initially couldn't keep up. The production team had to ask him to slow down so viewers could actually see the moves. Though The Green Hornet only ran for one season, Bruce had made an impression. But what came next would test his patience, his philosophy, and his identity in ways he could never have predicted. He was now in Hollywood. But Hollywood wasn't quite ready for Bruce Lee.
When The Green Hornet aired in 1966, Bruce Lee lit up American screens in a way no Asian actor had done before. Though billed as the sidekick, Kato quickly became the real draw. Fans didn't just watch the show for the masked hero, people were tuning in for Bruce. His speed, poise, and martial arts ability made him a standout, and soon The Green Hornet was being nicknamed the Kato Show overseas, especially in Hong Kong, where Bruce suddenly found himself a household name again. But in the United States, the reception was more complicated. Even with his rising fame, Bruce faced a deeply entrenched wall of Hollywood prejudice. Roles for Asian actors were rare, and when they did appear, they were often demeaning servants, background extras, villains with exaggerated accents. Bruce wanted more. He wasn't interested in playing stereotypes. He wanted to play real characters, complex, confident, and fully human. After The Green Hornet was cancelled in 1967, Bruce found himself in an awkward limbo. He had tasted success, but Hollywood had already closed the door again. Casting directors loved his look and energy, but couldn't see an Asian actor leading a show. Time and again, he was offered small parts, usually with a thick accent, and always secondary to the white lead. He turned down many of them. He knew what he wanted and what he would not settle for. Still, Bruce stayed busy. He took on occasional TV roles in shows like Ironside and Longstreet, but they were brief and barely scratched the surface of his talent. To support his family, he continued teaching martial arts. His students, however, were far from average. By this time, Bruce had developed a reputation in Hollywood's inner circles. Celebrities like Steve McQueen, James Coburn, and Roman Polanski sought him out for lessons. McQueen, in particular, became close to Bruce not just as a student, but as a friend. He admired Bruce's intensity, his refusal to compromise, and his relentless work ethic. Despite their admiration, even his most powerful students couldn't fully open Hollywood's doors for him. And so, Bruce began creating his own opportunities. He wrote a lot. He began developing a show he called The Warrior. The idea was bold: a martial arts series set in the American West, starring a Chinese protagonist who traveled from town to town, righting wrongs and facing discrimination. It was part kung fu, part social commentary. Bruce poured his heart into the concept and pitched it to Warner Brothers. He was passionate, prepared, and persuasive. But the studio passed. They said America wasn't ready for an Asian lead. They liked the concept but didn't think viewers would relate to a Chinese protagonist. Months later, they released a strikingly similar show, Kung Fu, starring David Carradine, a white actor made up to look vaguely Asian. Bruce was never officially credited, but he knew what had happened. Hollywood had taken his idea and erased him from it. It was a painful betrayal. Still, Bruce didn't quit. If anything, it lit a new fire in him. He began focusing even more on developing his own unique philosophy, Jeet Kune Do. It wasn't just a new fighting system, it was a new way of thinking. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. That was Bruce's mantra. He believed rigid styles made fighters predictable. Jeet Kune Do was about adaptability, economy of motion, and above all, freedom. It wasn't about how many techniques you knew. It was about how effectively you could use what worked. His ideas were revolutionary. Not just to martial artists, but to athletes, actors, and thinkers. He combined Eastern philosophy with Western practicality in a way no one had before. But even as his influence grew among those who knew him personally, Bruce still hadn't broken into the mainstream. Frustrated, financially stretched, and unsure of his future, Bruce returned to Hong Kong in 1971 for what was meant to be a short trip. But what he found there would change everything. To his surprise, Bruce discovered he was already a star in Hong Kong. The Green Hornet had aired there years earlier, and Kato had become a cultural icon. When Bruce arrived, fans swarmed him at the airport. Journalists begged for interviews. Studio heads lined up with offers. The Hong Kong film industry had changed dramatically since Bruce had left. Martial arts films were on the rise, but most were theatrical and unrealistic. Bruce saw an opening. He didn't want to make movies with flying swords and floating monks. He wanted to make films that showed real power, real speed, real discipline, real fights. He signed with Golden Harvest, a relatively new studio that offered him creative freedom. His first film with them was The Big Boss, released in 1971. The movie was a smash hit. Audiences were stunned. Bruce wasn't just fighting, he was blazing. His physicality, intensity, and authenticity set a new standard. He didn't just throw punches. He told a story with every move. In a sea of choreographed fluff, Bruce was raw, real, and explosive. The Big Boss shattered box office records across Asia. Suddenly, Bruce Lee was not just a local star. He was a phenomenon. His next film, Fist of Fury, only added fuel to the fire. Released in 1972, it was even more successful than the first. It wasn't just an action movie, it was a cultural statement. Bruce played a student who stands up to foreign oppressors in Shanghai. His famous scene where he destroys a "No Dogs or Chinese Allowed" sign became a rallying cry for pride and resistance. For the first time, Asian audiences saw a hero who looked like them, standing tall, fighting back, and winning. Bruce had become a symbol. And Hollywood noticed. Suddenly, the studios that once ignored him were back at his door. They wanted in. But this time, Bruce held the cards. He had proven himself internationally. He didn't need Hollywood, Hollywood needed him. That's when Warner Brothers finally came calling. But not with The Warrior. This time, they wanted to co-produce a new film with Bruce in the lead. It would be the first major Hollywood movie with a Chinese actor in a starring role. The title? Enter the Dragon. Bruce was cautious but excited. He knew this was his chance, not just to succeed personally, but to change the game for future generations. He threw himself into every aspect of the project. He worked on the script, choreographed the fights, and even helped cast the supporting roles. He wanted Enter the Dragon to be more than a kung fu flick. He wanted it to be a cinematic event. But even as the spotlight grew brighter, Bruce was pushing himself to dangerous extremes. His training became obsessive. His diet, his writing, his workouts, everything was intense, precise, and demanding. He knew time was short. He felt it. And then, something strange happened. In the middle of filming, Bruce collapsed. He suffered seizures and intense headaches. Doctors diagnosed it as cerebral edema, swelling of the brain. He recovered, but the scare left a shadow. Bruce brushed it off. There was too much to do. By the summer of 1973, Enter the Dragon was complete. It was scheduled for release in August. Bruce returned to Hong Kong, continuing work on his next film, Game of Death. His career was exploding, his influence spreading, and his dream finally within reach. But on July 20, 1973, just weeks before the premiere, Bruce Lee was found unconscious in an apartment in Hong Kong. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. Bruce Lee was dead at 32.